turns out there are other things we can actually talk about this offseason now that the Guardians have finally found their manager, but be forced to talk about one coaching move. That's going to make me sad.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. It's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now that I've said that, I'm walking out because of this coaching news. I will see you all later. Bye, Justin. I refuse to accept this. I'm going to quit. Goodbye.
I didn't even want to do the show today, okay? I didn't even want to do this today after the news. All right, look. Somewhere out in the universe, I don't know how time travel works or the space-time continuum works, but somewhere out there in 2005, 15-year-old me, and you can guess how old I am based on that, but somewhere out there, 15-year-old me is throwing a temper tantrum and refusing to watch baseball ever again because he found out that both Grady Sizemore and Jim Thome now work for the Chicago White Sox, and thank God Jose Ramirez signed an extension to stay in Cleveland because for me, like the top three Guardians / Indians, whatever, all time are Jim Thome, Grady Sizemore, and Jose Ramirez. If Jose Ramirez had left and he went to the White Sox to replace his buddy Tim Anderson, I don't think I can go on. I think I would just have to give up baseball. That was hard enough to see. The White Sox hired Grady Sizemore as a major league coach to work with the outfielders in Chicago. I don't know. Okay, the only way I can accept this, Jeff, is because last year you and I tried very hard to see if we could corral an interview with Grady Sizemore because his name was popping up because he was working for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, except this is his second year in coaching, is it not?
Yeah, he did like some spring training stints with Cleveland, and this is like I think this is his second or third full year as like a full-time instructor of sorts. So we tried to track him down to do an interview last year. It didn't work. Maybe the fact that he is now going to be at least coaching for the White Sox when they play in Cleveland will make him more accessible to an interview. I don't know. That's like the only sliver I can hang on to in this bit of news. Otherwise I might have to quit baseball and quit this podcast. Some people might like that. I don't know. That was very devastating news for me to find out today, though.
Yeah, it was rough. It was very rough.
Before anybody comments, I want to get ahead of this. Oh, Grady Sizemore was always injured with with Cleveland. Before the injuries, go look. The injuries happen. The injuries are the last thing you remember about him. But he played almost 162 straight games for 3 or 4 straight years. Yeah. He was a Gold Glover. He was a Silver Slugger. Which we're going to talk about those today. And he was an All-Star, and he was on track to be a Hall of Famer. He played. He was
every player, what every fan wants them to have now.
Yeah, he's a power hitting outfielder. He's a 5-2 outfielder. Like he's exactly what Cleveland could use right now. So yeah, that's even more depressing is the fact they don't have a Grady Sizemore right now, and that he also works for a rival.
For a long time until that year where Napoli and Santana both hit 30 home runs. Grady Sizemore was the answer to the trivia question. Who was the last Guardians player to hit 30 home runs?
Yeah. So before you make any comments saying he was always hurt, no, he was Mike Trout before Mike Trout. But
his comps in Baseball Reference in terms of age-related data, his two most significantly, and yes, that is a very flawed system, but it was Duke Snider and Barry Bonds, just to give you some company and some numbers. He was on a 100 for the rest of my life, and I know I've talked about this before. Him and then Braden Webb, who got hurt about the same time with Arizona, or Brandon Webb, the pitcher. Like both those guys were entering their peaks, and then that was essentially it. There was nothing after that. I know there was for Sizemore, but not really. Like those injuries were they decimated him, and
I'll throw Ben Sheets in there too. Remember Ben Sheets? He was I think similar
he was
to
good.
Brandon Webb.
But he had,
I think he had the same injury problems at the
little
end.
bit. Yeah, it's like he just kept getting hurt. The weird thing with Webb and Sizemore is that like where Sheets had a lot of years of like injuries, like those two guys were like fine. They had no injury issues, and then the wheels just fell off.
That was
and
it.
For the rest of my life, it's like Grady Sizemore is going to be one of the 5 best hitters I saw as a fan of the Cleveland Guardians. He's going to be up there, like him and Albert Bell are the first two that come to mind with Jose. Like that's kind of my top 3, I think, which might be sacrilege.
And you want to know what?
That is my top 3.
This is an argument too to don't overuse and overextend Jose Ramirez. Get the. I know he doesn't want to rest. And the Guardians don't. Yeah, the Guardians don't necessarily have a lineup at this point that can afford him to play 140 games instead of 162 or whatever. But get the man some rest. Get the man some help. Get the man some rest, so we don't have to, experience a Sizemore like decline anytime soon. Even though there might be one coming, but that's a story for another day. One of the things we didn't get to yesterday on the Stephen Vogt news was how much of the staff is going to stick around. We already know that Mike Sarbaugh is gone. We know that Mike Barnett's gone. We know that Rigo Beltran is gone from the bullpen. So, maybe they'll promote somebody from internal for the bullpen role. They've got a number of internal pitching people that I really like that I think have a chance. The real question here is going to be what the big 3, I guess, are Carl Willis, Chris Faleka, and DeMarlo Hale, because Stephen Vogt did that interview with Chris Rose. I think it was last year. Maybe it could have been because he just started that program this year. But the Chris Rose show, he was talking to Vogt about how he would handle things as a manager, and he was like, "Well, I think I need to have smart people around me, and I need to surround myself with experience because I would be inexperienced if I was a manager, and all those things." So I think he gets that. So I wonder, DeMarlo Hale's been in baseball quite a long time. Tito trusted him. I wonder if Vogt keeps him around. But the 2 things that are most interesting to me right now with what coaches will or will not stick around is Carl Willis did the exit interviews this year, I think with the pitchers at the very least, if not more. So, why would the front office allow why would they allow Carl Willis to be a big part of the exit interviews and helping pitchers plan for the offseason if he wasn't going to be back next year? And then Chris Faleka.
Because maybe they had no other option. Especially if they're going to let go of Beltran, then who else are you going to even have if Tito's out?
But why wouldn't you try to do something different if you weren't sure he was going to come back? And then Chris Faleka.
You don't have any other options. If you're not letting, if you're letting Beltran go, who else? I mean, you're going to have a roving pitching coordinator. I mean, who knows them? You're going to still have, we've seen organizations. I don't think that's necessarily a silver bullet situation that he is definitely coming back. I think in this case, you look at the Occam's razor. Why did they have him do that? Because they don't have a manager and he knew those players best. Like the simplest explanation is he's who they had on hand.
Maybe. I don't know. I do think they do like Willis. He's done a good job and the pitching has been good under him. And they have a lot of young pitchers who would benefit from some continuity. And the Chris Faleka thing is a little more interesting too, because they interviewed him for the manager's job. And I know you might say well, that was out of courtesy, whatever, but still, are you going to, imagine you're interviewing for a role at any job and you and somebody else are up for the same role. And this person this person has less experience than you. And they offer the other person the job and the other person comes to you and says, "Hey, I know I got the job that, we both interviewed for, but how would you like to work under me with less experience?" Like I know baseball's not in this way. It's not similar to other jobs, so it's hard to completely compare to this. But I kind of wonder, if they interviewed Chris Faleka and he didn't get the job, is he really going to want to come and stay here under somebody else who got the job over him and technically does have less experience? That might be weird, right?
It'd probably be a little, but I also don't think he has the ability to I think he's kind of stuck, right? If he doesn't play nice, where else is he going to go? He's just not in a great situation right now. And we'll see. I'm very curious to see what this is going to look like in terms of the overall assembling of a staff. Because, we talked about yesterday, it felt like part of the reason they probably liked Vogt was, a holistic approach, right? That this is going to be all of them working together to field this staff, put things together. But at the same time, if how much input and like where does he want to go with it, and like he just doesn't know as many people. It's going to be very fascinating.
It really is. I don't know. I think that Willis will be back. That's my just a guess. I don't know about the Lake or Hale. I would not be surprised if Willis is back. That's the only thing I would really. I don't have any inside information on that, but I'm just throwing a guess out there that out of all three of them,
Justin said that Carl Willis will be back. He guarantees it.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out Friday. I think in the press conference they'll have some other staffers named. I'm very curious to see who joins him. But continue to join us here on Locked On Guardians. We got much more to come on award season, roster fodder, and the GM meetings are going on. Anything else going to happen there?
No.
Before we get into roster situations, score early with the NFL this season with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. So right now, looks like the money line is plus 200 on the Browns for Sunday. I don't think that'll change too much. I think that should be about the same. We'll see what happens with the injury report, but yeah, that's an interesting way. They're plus 6 too as well. But that thing you want is the money line bet. If you are a new FanDuel customer, $150 if your $5 money line bet wins. If you are a new FanDuel customer, so now is a good time to get in on the action with FanDuel. If you're not already, the app's easy to use. They have a wide range of betting options. So if you're not into the money line thing, you don't trust yourself making that bet, and you're not taking advantage of the free money, I guess, with $150, you can also bet spreads, player props, overs, unders, more, all that good stuff. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. We also, I don't know if we glossed over award season, but we had a lot of other things to talk about because for what felt like 80 days, we had nothing to talk about but manager stuff because that was the only thing that was going on, and other moves were embargo. But award stuff happened. Some of it matters. Some of it matters a little bit less. I think, what was it? Jose Ramirez was the only Silver Slugger nominee for Cleveland, which is interesting because I meant to get to this on, I think, the solo show I did last week, but probably could argue. I don't think he's going to win. Probably could have made an argument for Josh Naylor at first base because Nathaniel Lowe got nominated, and Nathaniel Lowe had a pretty significantly less batting line, less WRC plus, less homers, and I think less RBI than Josh Naylor. Like I don't think Josh Naylor was going to win first base because it's just a hard position to win that at, but could have made an argument he should have been a finalist. I don't think Jose Ramirez winds up getting that one though, but no. Not a very consequential award anyway.
It was a year for the old guard to kind of fall apart. We probably won't get too much into the qualifying offers either, but Matt Chapman, you and I were, I mean, listen, everyone thought he was going to get the qualifying offer, but it's going to be interesting what offer he gets in free agency because it's like Matt Chapman, Jose Ramirez, that guard of third baseman. We saw Gunnar Henderson kind of being part of that new grouping, but the older guard did not have had a bit of a disappointing year.
Yeah, they kind of did. It was not a good one. And then, so he's the only Silver Slugger. We didn't want to talk about Gold Gloves, but Kwan and Gimenez both got Gold Gloves. No, not really a shock to anybody.
No.
There, and again, I'm not saying for the players it's not consequential because I'm sure there's like some sort of money bonus that comes along with that or 100%. Something.
I'm sure if we dug into the contracts, we'd find it.
Yeah, I mean, good for them for getting that. Kwan deserved it, and Gimenez definitely deserved it. The question, though, with those two is this. You've got two Gold Glovers who are adding, whether or not you believe the word is consequential and it can be accurately quantified, or, we believe the defensive numbers because they're always changing and they're always evolving, which, again, I'd also encourage people to listen that just because numbers are different doesn't mean they were wrong. It just means that they learn more information. That's how science works. do you risk the defensive value they bring to your team? Because there's a scenario next year or in the next couple of years, however this works out, because for the time being, Andres Gimenez is locked up for 6 more years, 7 more years possibly, and Stephen Kwan is still under club control too for a couple more years. They're going to be here. They're going to be, pieces to this organization to build along with. I don't want to say build around because they're not necessarily cornerstones, but the rambling here, it leads me to say, do you risk eventually moving them off their positions? Because in theory, it'd be great to have Stephen Kwan in center field, right? Because Miles Straw is not a good hitter. Opens up left field for possibilities.
That's one of those hard translations where it's like.
This is my question. So, do you risk the defensive value you get moving Kwan to center and moving Andres Gimenez to shortstop if it comes down to that? Because there's a scenario where Gimenez plays short and Juan Brito plays second, or Tyler Freeman, however this works out, right? I wouldn't be surprised if Andres Gimenez is a better shortstop defensively than Brian Rocchio. Probably not Gabby Arias, but we don't know if he's going to hit. But do you risk the defensive value they bring to the team to move them up the defensive spectrum, because both of them have previous experience at those positions, more probably specifically Gimenez?
Well, with Gimenez, I feel like he can legitimately be good at it. So I am more willing to put it we have data to show that he is a plus shortstop based on, what has occurred in the past and how he's performed there. The thing with Kwan was in the minors, he was kind of more of an average defensive center fielder by reports and people who saw him. So he's going from maybe the best defensive left fielder to an average center fielder. And nowadays that defensive line or offensive line, I should say, between those positions is not as big as it used to be. So it's he might be significantly less valuable if you move him out of left, because he no longer has a plus trait, right? The defense is a plus trait right now. You put him in center, then it's an average bat, average glove. That's still fine, but it's why kind of teams like Tampa went and added guys like Jose Siri, where they could get that plus defense, but also get some plus tools or take a risk on some bigger upside.
Is Cleveland better off with Stephen Kwan? I mean, you said he doesn't have another plus tool. He really doesn't. But the thing you're getting out of Stephen Kwan besides defense is OBP, because he makes a lot of contact. He gets the ball in play, and he can walk some too. He's got a good batting eye at the plate. So OBP is really what you're hoping for with Kwan. And the defense obviously factors in here. Is Cleveland better off, though, by benching Miles Straw and making him a defensive replacement pinch runner and sacrificing the defense in center field? Because if he's an average center fielder, that's fine. Average is still pretty good. I don't know. There's two ways of looking at this. Would you rather have the average bat, average defense in center field, get rid of the negative offense in Miles Straw, potentially add a plus bat in left field that makes up for that? You're improving two positions offensively, right? You're hopefully improving left field offensively, and you're improving center field offensively. You could still use Miles Straw as a defensive replacement. It's not that big of a drop off. Or, is this a team that has to play the plus defender because they don't have the bats? But if you add the bat in left field, you don't have to worry about that, and you still get the plus defense out of Straw, because let's face it, he's not going anywhere anyway. So you might as well. I would say, like we talked about, I know it's a sunk cost, but this is all in practice and theory, obviously. But if you can add a plus bat in left field and you get the average defense in center field, you're still paying Straw anyway. You can get the plus defense when you need it most in the game.
Yeah. Basically, I think what this comes down to is Stephen Kwan isn't good enough to block anyone. Stephen Kwan is a connector piece. He's a solid piece, but he is a piece, and he can play a few different spots and he can be fine. So his position depends on what you can add. That's all it is. Where he plays depends more on what you can bring in and less on Stephen Kwan. Stephen Kwan is a piece you can be reactionary with. If I know center fielders are typically harder to find, but if you can find a center fielder, great, you keep him left. If you can find a right fielder, hey, and the important thing is getting Straw out. So if you got to put him in center, okay, you take that hit. It does lessen his overall value. I know people will be like, that's not what you said. I'm just saying his best value is going to be in left field. That's where he's going to be the biggest contributor. But you need 2 new outfielders right now if you think this team can contend, and it's wherever you can find them. Like he's threw out a bunch of guys. I know it's not the strongest arm, but you could probably even get away with him in right. Like he's accurate enough that I bet it could work out. It's like how many throws are there where that's really going to be like a game breaker? So it's like Stephen Kwan is part of this team. He's going to be strictly average on the grand scheme of things because he has no power. He hits on base at a good rate. He's a solid defender. So it's just finding those secondary pieces. That's the important thing, because that determines what you do with Kwan. It's not about Kwan. It's not about what you have. Nothing is about what you have. It's about what you can get.
Agreed. He can just move wherever you need him to move in the outfield, and you just put him there and you upgrade the outfield by however means necessary. And that does not mean external. That could be internal too. It just depends on how strongly Cleveland feels about their internal options. We have a lot of varied views on those. And real quickly too, Tanner Bybee, Rookie of the Year finalist. Not a shock there. I'm going to say he finishes in second. Gunnar Henderson is the heavy favorite.
Agreed.
And then Tristan Cassis of the Red Sox made the final list. A little surprised. Look at that. I think we talked a lot about Josh Young from the Rangers being on there because he was having a great year and he was the all-star starter at third base. Didn't make the final 3. So I'm going to say Bybee finishes in second.
Yes.
And then a lot to talk about there this offseason if that happens and how Cleveland approaches a contract extension with him. So stay tuned for future episodes on that, and stay tuned to Locked On Guardians. We talk about the future of the 40-man roster because next week is the Rule 5 deadline, everyone's favorite. All right, Rule 5 deadline is November 14th. The Rule 5 draft is not until December 6th. We talked about the Rule 5 already. We talked about guys who were eligible and who we thought was going to be added, right?
We've done kind of our layout of like, these are the ones to know. You have a really good article. My one comment when I went through is you left Kevin Kelly out, not to throw you under the bus, but you have a really good preparation article people should check out.
Oh, from last season's picks. I did leave Kevin Kelly out. Ooh. Yeah, that was a big whoops.
Not to call you out on the air, but everything else in that.
No, call me out for that. That was a boo-boo.
But I meant to tell you privately, but I would also recommend, just don't put it in the show notes, go find his article if you want a more in-depth take on the Rule 5. Like we've covered it here on the show, the names to know, the ones we think are the closest. And as we hear more, maybe we'll give you more info, but I think we have that covered on the show. I think, talking roster fodder is an interesting discussion, and talking how this might go, because honestly, we go back to a year ago. I remember sitting there in a staff meeting as I think the draft was happening. And I feel like I was in another staff meeting the day of when the roster finalizes, because all those trades happened. It was a great day on the podcast because we had a big bump in numbers because, Carlos Vargas got traded. Nolan Jones got traded. I know, it's okay. I understand your pain. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if, again, they approach this year as a way to, if they're looking at trades again, ways to operate around the edges of the roster to help get things down a little bit better, get yourself in a stronger position.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, nothing shocks me on 40-man roster day, because the 1 year, 2 years ago, we had the Ilfid Junior Caminero deal. Last year was the Nolan Jones Juan Brito deal. So I never count out what the Guardians might do on.
What bad trade are they going to make this year? That is the one day maybe they should make no trades. Like that day is a bad day for them in trades.
It is. Well, hey, here's the thing. This year they don't have that roster crunch as we talked about. It's not a situation where they are like
a slight crunch,
desperately trying to find. Yeah. I mean, they got to make room for Daniel Espino right now. That's the thing we're wanting to talk about today, was that. So they're full of 40 after claiming Betancourt, and they removed Gallagher, and they added Bybee back to the
off-season injured list. So they had to add Bybee back.
Right. So they're full of 40 right now, which means they have to make at least one spot for Daniel Espino. So, I mean, the easy call there is Alfonso Rivas, right? Like, you just DFA him, hope he gets their waivers, and you add Espino. Like, he's got to be the first guy in the chopping block, right? Because everybody else, in terms of pure talent and what you want to do with them, like everybody else is above him.
Well, again, the one thing I will again throw out there is 99 is going to cost close to $2 million with the other pieces they have in place. If they really like Michael Kelly with the young players that are coming up, he could be the one just due to money and spots and how much they're already going to have kind of invest in that bullpen, especially if they want to consider, like, if they've had any discussions with, like, hey, maybe we want to bring back Lopez or someone like that, then having 99 probably hurts your chances of bringing in a free agent reliever because that money isn't available. So there is a world where I think 99 or Michael Kelly could be up there as well. I feel like it's a 3-man group. Though every time I think they're going to cut Michael Kelly, they keep him. So I almost feel like it's 99 who they let just rot in the minors. Let's be honest. He only came up because they had a dire need. And Rivas, who it's very clear the plan for him is, hey, you're going to be here temporarily to see if we can pass you through later for depth.
I'm not cutting any of those guys over Rivas. Like my first, to add Espino, my first option is Rivas, because as much as they did let Karinchak rot in the minors for a little bit because things just weren't going well and he lost velocity and all this other stuff and he can't hold runners. Like, yeah, I'm if there's a world where you can move on from him, and it wouldn't shock me if they do, and you have to be sure that you're going to go out and upgrade the bullpen in his stead, I'd be fine with it. I mean, you could even argue, like, if you want a non-tender Karinchak and you want to add Cade Smith to the 40-man roster for that move, I'm all for that too. But the first guy on the chopping block to me has to be Rivas. Like, if I'm only getting one spot, if even let's say there's a world where Smith isn't added, I'm not booting Karinchak right now or Michael Kelly over Rivas, because there's no pathway. There's no good pathway for Rivas playing. If he plays, then things have gone very bad this year, or the guy went to a hitting lab and just became Barry Bonds overnight. Like, that's the only way I could see that working. So I'm not cutting anybody else over Rivas to add.
He starts drinking.
Espino. Yeah, I'm not doing
that sweet spot and non-chase rate into some power.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a baseball god out there or a voodoo doll to make that work. So it's got to be Rivas for me. And then, they already added Rodriguez, obviously. So that's a spot that we were, maybe on the, I was more on the fence than you about what they would do there, but they did. So I can't see anybody else added but Smith. Like, he's the last one I can see added. And then at that point, then you've got to make, I would, I don't know. Yeah, it's a toss up for me between 99 and Michael Kelly, because you can save money.
And what makes it a toss up?
Yeah. Here's the other thing too. I don't want to throw cold water at any of this, because people are going to be like, well, I'm not listening to the rest of the offseason because you're pessimistic and there's no reason to get excited. But we saw an article tonight from the Twins beat reporter, Bob Nightingale's son, Bobby Nightingale, the Star Tribune. He was talking to Derek Falvey, and Derek Falvey said they expect the Twins to operate at a lower payroll in 2024 than 2023 because the TV money has ran out, or it's running out. Cleveland is in a similar situation when it comes to TV money. So are you going to pay James Karinchak $1.9 million because you're not going to pay Ronaldo Lopez 3 years and like 27? They're not. I don't know. I think Lopez winds up being out of their price range. I just don't think they're going to do that, as much as I would like to have him back. So if you're not going to, I just don't think they're going to have the money to do it. So you might as well hang on to Karinchak and see if you can make a trade to upgrade that spot. I would probably go, I don't know, are Kelly and Karinchak talent-wise at this point on a somewhat even plane?
I mean, it does not seem like they are in the eyes of this organization in the way they're deployed.
Maybe they'll trade. Maybe that'll be the surprise on decision day, is they trade James Karinchak. Maybe trade him.
I think it would be logical, except for like, what are you like? Who believes in that dude right now outside of people in our comments? Like, no one believed in him, or they probably would have traded him a year ago trying to get max. I think everyone knew, because again, he very idiosyncratic, a player who was worried with the pitch clock, a player who has been caught multiple times with some baseball doctoring.
He was never caught. He was never
he wasn't caught. But I mean,
he was accused.
Right.
Let's be fair here. He was accused, never caught.
He did have massive drops every time they enforced things in terms of his spin rate. So while he's never caught, the data showed that all of a sudden it changed.
Doesn't that make it worse that he didn't get caught and his stuff still went down? So it's like, yeah, he's not doing anything illegal. Like, it'd be better if he got caught doing that stuff. Like, okay,
well, I think
so
it's just he
went down and he's not cheating.
I think he got afraid of being caught cheating and instead just like changed what he was doing.
Here's
like,
before we get out of here, here's the move we probably should talk about. We shouldn't have talked about this late. Yeah. There were some legs to Eniel De Los Santos being traded at the trade deadline by the Guardians to the Cubs. That deal never came to fruition. That's probably the trade we should be talking about at the 40-man deadline, right? Is that they move him?
No, yeah, I think that is definitely worth discussion, especially because I feel like I think the Cubs are a sleeper for a few free agents.
Everybody,
not Ohtani, but the top Japanese pitcher, which is
they're savages. Aaron Boone should go to the Cubs too, because the Cubs are savages right now.
But we want to thank you all for joining us, Savages, on the show today. We obviously would like to keep going, but we are out of time. Thank you for doing your part, joining us, commenting, and having some fun. We will be covering all angles all off season, so make sure you're tuning in daily, and go Guardians.